Came home from work on a Monday afternoon, went in, had a shower to get ready for bed, came out to the bedroom, I fell over and died. I had no prior indication of anything that would happen here. Just a couple of months before I started getting heartburn, indigestion.
Ray said he was freezing cold, he was going for a shower. I said, OK, I'll just wash up and I'll come down and have mine.
Mum started to scream and I just knew in her voice like something wasn't right. And I ran in there and just there's Dad on the floor up against the cabinet.
Just saw his father on the ground and just grabbed him and threw him over so he could, you know, see his face, and he was blue.
Took his last 2 breaths and he was dead. And just, I looked at Mum, I yelled to Talisa and just said, call 000. Next second I remember is Talisa's in there, the lady's talking to me from the 000 call. And she just said, so do this. I'd never done a CPR course or anything. I'd started one at school but never finished it. And she just said, start compressing us on the chest. I don't remember exactly what the words were, but I just started compressions. She told me where to put my hands, how hard to go, and I just went for it.
And once I could see that Braden had it all under control, that he was fine, I sort of stepped back and thought, we have an ED nurse that lives across the road.
And then Talisa ran out and ran across the street.
Next second, our neighbour's there.
I felt like I was going for about 15 minutes. It was just a relief for me that we would swap and she would go. The next thing I remember is the 000 responder, she said, you're at 600 compressions. I was pushing, and next second I heard crack.
Our neighbour just said, keep going, keep going.
Keep going, Braden. You're our man. Keep going. Bring Dad back, mate. Help.
The ambulance crew arrived approximately 13 minutes after the initial call. The paramedics took over the CPR and commenced ongoing treatment of the patient. The patient was urgently conveyed to Kempsey District Hospital. En route to the hospital, paramedics maintained CPR and ongoing drug therapy and alerted the hospital via the radio of their pending arrival.
So I think we're at Kempsey until about 11 o'clock that night when they said that they're going to transport him to Port Macquarie.
It was decided initially to transfer him here where he was intubated and to see whether or not he had a neurological recovery that would warrant further treatment. And if there was no meaningful neurological recovery, then he would have just been palliated. So rather than send him away from his family, we decided to look after him here in the first instance. Those discussions were had with Prince of Wales and they felt pretty much the same way, that it was a rather unfair thing to send him down there, given the period of time that he'd had unresponsive, and everyone at that point thought that his neurological outcome would be very poor.
When Mr Farrell came from Kempsey, he was on life support. He was stabilised in intensive care. He had lines inserted so he can give lots of medications and monitor his blood pressure.
So we went straight from Sydney to Port Macquarie Hospital. Of course, once we got there, then the reality set in.
The thoughts that do go through your mind are, am I burying him? Is he going to be okay? Is he brain dead? What are we going to do for the rest of our lives with just me and the children?
The next morning he was trying to pull out his endotracheal tube, so it was fairly clear that his neurological recovery would be good. So at that point we decided to open up the cardiac cath lab.
The team was activated and the cath lab team came in We liaised between the intensive care department and our department in the cath lab, and the ICU team brought him over and he went into the procedure for angio. The angio was extensive, and due to obviously Mr. Farrowell's very serious condition, it was a prolonged procedure.
He had an occluded LAD, the artery running down the front of the heart, and he had severe disease in another major artery as well. So we elected to go on and fix those. So we used percutaneous coronary intervention. We put stents in and reconstructed the blocked artery, and he ended up with a total of 5 stents. At the time of the procedure, he had clot in his ventricle, so we had to anticoagulate him, and his left ventricular function was severely impaired. So to assist with that, we put a balloon pump in for the next 48 hours to try and assist with recovery.
Over the next 48 hours, we're able to wean off all his medications and his artificial support. His heart was going on its own.
His bloods were returning to normal and he was, you know, moving in a positive direction.
Naturally, the size of me, I couldn't reach him, the bed was too high. So I used to go to the top of the bed and kiss him on his forehead, on the top of his head, on his forehead. And he moved his head. He'd move his head. And that, as soon as he was doing little movements to us, that was a sign of something good.
And he woke up and said, hello, Janine. He was back in the land of living, so to speak, and it was just wonderful, but he was very confused.
It was extremely concerning to wake up with cables all over me, and I didn't know what had happened.
We kept saying, why? Why did this happen? And that's all he kept saying to everybody.
It was a relief when he woke up, but a little bit scary knowing that you've got to wait till he's coherent to know how he really is. It's one thing to be alive, but is his memory going to be the same? Will he remember everyone?
I know Mrs. Farrowell and the rest of the family found this time very challenging because there were still so many unknowns. We'd gone through this, you know, life-changing event, and what's next? What does Mr. Farrowell look like in the future? And these discussions were coming up constantly.
He just kept improving from that day forward, and it was only a few more days and then transferred to Kempsey.
So I had a week in Kempsey Hospital. Were very good, learned to talk again, learned to eat, learned to walk around, lots of family around, which was good.
And he stayed in Kempsey for only a short period of time because his rehab was going so well. The team in Kempsey felt that the best place for him was at home, to continue having his rehab at home with his family to support him during this, because that seemed to be what was working most for him.
It was basically a couple of weeks here at home. My mother and father, they retired, so that was really helpful, having them around to drive me around shopping and take me places and show me things.
Janine had to go back to the business and run the business. So Lance and I would come out and we would sit with him all day, talk to him, get him his lunch, get him his morning tea. We'd do all we had to do for him.
So a couple of weeks of that, recuperation, driving around with Mum and Dad. And then I think it was 3 weeks later and I went back to work. Not very good, but I went back to work. And it was quite difficult actually to go back to work and have to learn all the things about the work environment. So not just typing or writing or those sorts of things, but learning all about the business and how to do things and how to do accounts and how to send invoices, how to send an email. And to relearn to do these things.
The journey that he's been through to get from what he was to now, it's just wonderful. It's just so wonderful.
It sort of changes your focus on life. Everything else becomes less important than being alive and having your family around.
We've just had a bond like no other. We play golf together. we've always been mates.
One thing that I did say when I gave a speech at their wedding in April was that I would not be here without Braden and Talisa.
It wouldn't have been the same without him there, as it wouldn't have been with any family member missing. But I guess it made it all the more special because Braden was the first responder.
Braden even cherished that, as you know, to have his father by his side when he walked the love of his life down that aisle. It was just wonderful.
Could have gone so much worse, but without all the people being in the right place at the right time.
And to bring him back 71 minutes after he collapsed in front of me, I just think that's amazing.
Right from the time he went down here on the floor at home until he left that hospital, everyone was wonderful. We couldn't fault anybody, not a soul.
Dr. French, I believe, is just an amazing man.
I understand that family are saying that I'm a hero, but really the real heroes in this situation were the family themselves for staying calm and offering immediate bystander CPR, and that's what really saved his life. And the other heroes in this is just the system itself that works to save these patients, all the hard-working paramedics, nursing staff, doctors, and the cardiologist and all the cardiology support staff. That the heroes are really the system rather than any one person.
If there wasn't good, effective CPR being performed on the patient prior to the ambulance and paramedics arriving on the scene, the patient would not have survived.
The nurses, the doctors, everybody that came and saw us just say, you're so proud of yourself. I didn't want the recognition. I just did what anyone would do in that situation.
What Mr. Farrell's story highlights to us is that we have a high-quality, skilled workforce across our district that is able to deliver excellent care to patients that require it, whether they're critically ill, as Mr. Farrell was, and that we're super proud of what our staff are able to deliver, and that Mr. Farrell's family felt that the care that they received was excellent and as a higher standards that they would receive in any other facility within the state.
The whole journey has been unbelievable and cannot thank people enough.
All of the medical staff, all of the hospital staff have done a great job. So that's what I said. So part of the journey is, from Braden and Talisa to our neighbour, to the ambulance drivers, to Kempsey Hospital staff, to Port Macquarie Hospital staff, and to Dr. French and his cath lab team. It's been a great journey for me, that's for sure. The system works. I am proof that the system works.